Hello, thank you for joining us today.
Mo and Mom.
You're too loud.
Sorry. We do ASMR style movie reviews for funsies. And today we're going to do one of our favorites.
All time, I think in my top 20 actually, and that is Dances with Wolves. If you have never seen Dances with Wolves, oh, you must put it on your must list. But I can't imagine. Gary Larson did a thing about that.
The Far Side. If you know of the Far Side cartoons, Gary Larson didn't like Dances with Wolves, and I think only 2 people showed up.
Yeah, there was only 2 people that didn't like Dances with Wolves. Well, it won so many awards.
Loves it.
It was written and directed and starred in, and I did not give Kevin Costner this much credit for being brilliant enough to create a movie of this caliber. It was just wonderful. Of course, I personally love anything that has to do with depicting realistically the plight of what happened to the American Indian, which is just devastating to me.
It's genocide.
It was. It very much
100%.
was. It was just evil, and still is today, if you ask my opinion. I think one of the few books I ever read in my life, and I'm a big reader, was I actually sobbed over Trail of Tears. Yes, which is another true story, but we don't want to go into that. But Dances with Wolves starts out in the Civil War, which is another of my favorite time spans. My family actually has relics from the Civil War, as it did pass through the area that my family was in.
Yeah, the bones from the old wagon are still sitting in the barn, right?
Well, that was pre-Civil War. That was 1700s.
Still. The history is
but
there.
we had a U.S. cavalry saddle and bridle, and let me tell you, that saddle was the most uncomfortable, painful thing. I don't see how they used it back then. Oh, it was horrible. But anyway, it starts out with our hero, John Dunbar, in the Civil War, and we have a standoff between the North and the South. They're on opposite sides of the field. And nobody can,
film.
Yeah, nobody can really do anything. It's just an impasse.
They're all hanging out, eating, just waiting for something to happen.
But our hero, John Dunbar, has obviously been wounded, and he is in the medical tent, and they're getting ready to cut off his foot. Of course,
he comes to realize
gangrene killed more people back then than anything. So if you got damaged, it was just going to whack it off. And of course, no anesthesia. I just can't imagine how people dealt with that back then. But this is a great depiction of what that was like. And he's still awake enough to understand that they're getting ready to chop off his foot. And he decides, I don't want to live like that. I'd rather die. And consequently, when nobody's looking, he manages to get out of the tent. He finds a stray horse, which comes to be Cisco, who plays an important part of the movie.
His friend.
And basically tries to commit suicide, riding in front of the enemy, lined up behind the fence, daring them to shoot him, kind of thing.
On top of the horse, yeah.
Fortunately, this takes their mind off of sitting there and trying to pick each other off. They're so focused on him that the northern side takes advantage of that, and they end up attacking, and obviously they ended up winning that skirmish, which when they finally find John Dunbar, who's half passed out, he's fallen off the horse, but the commanding officer says, this is an officer worth keeping.
He's a hero.
And he's a hero, and he promises John Dunbar that he will get to keep his foot. So we find out later the result of that is they pretty much give him whatever he wants, and he asks for the horse that he was riding, Cisco. He also asks to be sent out west because he wants to see the frontier before it's gone.
Yeah, that's right.
Which tells me right away that he's far more far-thinking than the majority of people are at that point. So that's where he goes, which is we run into his commanding officer that in the western town that thinks he's automatically assumes he's out of his mind.
Nobody goes out.
Yeah, who does that?
Nobody does that.
And he asks him if he's an Indian fighter. He said, I deduced he's an Indian fighter. And this guy's very odd. At one point he says, just out of the blue, he says, I just pissed my pants and there's nothing I can do about it, which I believe was the key to giving us the hint that he had syphilis, which is eventually, when it gets far enough stages, eats away at the brain, which explained his odd behavior. He really doesn't do any documentation of John Dunbar showing up there, and he scribbles this nothing on a piece of paper, which is obviously a big joke to him, folds it up into a teeny little thing and says, here, this paper will see you through miles of hostile environment, that's a joke.
Well, that comes into play later in the movie, too, that there's no documentation of this guy actually going through
John
there.
Dunbar coming in, being assigned. They send him out to this fort that's way out in the middle of the wilderness.
Nowhere.
And he rides out with a supply cart.
His horse.
And our supply driver, which I love the supply driver.
It's a comic relief a bit.
Yes. He does say, writing in his diary, this may be the foulest man I've ever met in my life. But he
loves his donkeys.
His mules.
That's his mules. That's
he
right.
He loves his mules. But
there
was one poignant when they are traveling out there. John Dunbar notices a bleached skeleton laying there with an arrow sticking out of it. And he's kneeling over it, obviously deep in thought on what happened. And our driver comes up and starts laughing. And one of my favorite lines was, he's going back east. Why don't he ride? The irony is, our driver on the way back, ends up having the same fate as our bleached skeleton, unfortunately. But he does get John Dunbar to the fort, which is filthy, nasty.
Demolished. There's a dead deer in the water source, which is poison, so he's got to do a lot of work ahead of him. He's completely by himself, right? And
that's one of the things the Indians kept talking about. The white man was just nasty. He was just dirty, and they obviously proved that they were. But he gets it all cleaned up. And in the process of being out there by himself, he has a wolf come up, a stray wolf.
I love that. That's his friend. He's so happy to see something else out there besides nothing.
Yeah.
And he starts wanting to befriend this wolf. And we get our Dances with Wolves wolf.
That's right. Oh, that came later, though.
Yes, of course. But that's the same wolf. The Indians see him.
What is it Dustin always says?
Oh, if he comes tomorrow, I will name him Two Socks. So that is...
I love that about Dustin.
That is the name of our wolf that ends up being kind of like it's not quite a dog, but it is definitely a friend to him, and he takes it upon himself to try to make him as friendly by, of course, what works with most animals, which is food.
Well, he never gets close enough to actually touch or pet it, but it becomes his second set of eyes or ears, as does his horse. He can tell when somebody's approaching, because the wolf is going to hear it before anybody else does and react to something coming, and that gives him a heads up several times throughout the movie. But finally, it starts getting really good when the Indians realize that somebody is back at the fort. There is no trace of all the people that were there. He has no idea what happened to them. There's supplies there, there's food there, but no people.
And obviously nobody's been there for a little while. It's been quite a while, pretty dilapidated.
So anyway, the Indians are discussing what they're going to do about this lone white man, and some of them are saying, now the chief is very wisely just listening, and some of them are saying he must have powerful medicine. We should go and talk to him. He may know something that we need to know. And the others, of course, the younger, more macho men are going, no, how dare he? We go kill him. Find out if he's trouble. Medicine. So we've got a group of young boys, Indian boys, listening to all this, and as they decide they want to be heroes. So that night they sneak off.
It's still Cisco.
And they sneak up, and they're able to steal Cisco. He wakes up right in the middle of all the ruckus, their little whoops and whatnot.
They're whooping, they're celebrating.
He goes charging out and conks himself and knocks himself flat cold on the threshold of the door, the head thing of the door. But the kids are so proud of themselves. This was so funny.
Cisco home.
Yeah, we're going to be heroes. They're going to write songs about us. And suddenly Cisco gets about halfway from home and decides, wait a minute, I don't want to go with them. And just, you've got a 1,000-pound animal. Says, no, I'm not. And you're riding bareback. And that poor little kid came flying off his horse and hurt his arm. And of course they're mad at him. We didn't tell you to fall off. We're all going to get in trouble now. It's your fault.
Kids.
So, anyway, the adult Indians decide, finally the men decide they are going to do pretty much the same thing.
They're going to show them how it's done.
Yeah, so they go back at night.
The same thing.
And they steal Cisco, and they're riding back, big powerful warriors with Cisco, and they get halfway back, and Cisco does the same thing. And he yanks this poor guy off his horse hard and heads back, because we're going, there's no way John Dunbar would survive without his horse. So that was good that Cisco was such a loyal friend. But eventually he decides that sitting around is not the brave thing to do. He needs to go and try to...
They're going to keep, obviously, they're going to keep coming after him. So he decides to go and head first. And goes and has an amazing experience over the movie, making a relationship.
Yes, but that's when he ran into her. She was committing suicide. This Indian, I forgot.
That's right. That's right.
Indian female stands with a fist. Her husband had been killed somehow. We don't really know.
She was widowed, yeah.
She was widowed, so she had slit her wrist and was sitting underneath a tree singing. And she passed out, and he carried her up to the village thinking he was doing so good. I loved when they couldn't figure out what he was doing, why he was there, and the guy that we ended up liking so much goes up and just grabs her and drags her one arm, and she's got her arm up and all that.
The hair.
Yay! I love that was realistic enough. The only thing I didn't like is you noticed, well, you find out, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. You find out that she was actually a white person. Her family had been massacred.
And they had adopted her.
By the Pawnee, I believe.
That's right.
And they had found her as a small child. I'm guessing she was 3 or 4 years old enough to be able to speak, but young enough to adapt to growing up as an Indian.
These people were known as
Sioux.
The Sioux.
These are the Sioux. They called themselves the people.
The people, so our tribe is the Sioux, which are not the most aggressive tribes there, and you do meet more aggressive tribes in the area. But he does eventually develop quite a wonderful relationship with this tribe.
When he is finally, he keeps wondering where the buffalo is.
That's he keeps asking about the buffalo.
And finally he wakes up to an earthquake, he thinks, and it's thousands upon thousands. Buffalo were so many back then, and he does a great depiction of showing how horrible mankind is. Men that just love to destroy for the fun of it, for no reason.
The white man just, for fun, they didn't do anything but count how many they could kill in a day and just let them lay there and rot. It was, anyways, it was a destruction of the West is what that was. And it continued for quite a long time, and it's still continuing.
It's still continuing to this day. I will never understand such evil people.
He is out there. They actually let him go hunt the buffalo with them, which is a big honor. And while they're out there, and they only take what is necessary, what they need to do to survive until the buffalo come back again, because this is their life.
They use every
and they worshipped them because they realized how important that they were to their lives, their daily lifestyle. So he gets to go with them, and as they're in the process of trying to fall a buffalo, right? Yeah. He goes after one of the young boys.
Yeah.
And Kevin Costner's character saves the young Native American boy.
He managed to shoot him from being trampled.
That's it.
Right at the last second.
That's what it was.
So he becomes a little bit of a hero.
They respect him a little bit more at this point and start, if I remember correctly, they start nudging the white girl towards them, do better with your English.
Yeah, that's when her dad, the medicine man, who was one of my favorite characters, I've seen him in tons of things, convinces her to try to make the white man talk. And first she's reluctant
she doesn't want to, no.
But she finally gives in, and her stumbling English was rather well done, I thought. The only thing that did tick me off, her hair.
Oh, you don't like my Harry Potter?
No, her hair.
Her hair, I was going to say, the
she had a shag haircut.
She did.
Everybody else is wearing braids and has their Indian hair done like Indians, but not
she
her.
Looks like
she has bangs and a shag haircut.
That's what my hair normally looks like, yes.
That just bugged me. If she'd grown up there, she would have her hair like them. So
I agree.
That did kind of...
They made her stand out a little bit more like that, though.
But it was... Other than that, I thought she did a very good job of depicting that frustration.
So he has a wonderful... the movie really is about, I believe, him developing an amazing relationship with this tribe and showing the human side, where everybody at this point in the West thinks of them as savages, and he comes to know that they're actually more human and better
civilized
people than the people that he left back in those cities.
Very much so.
So at some point he realizes he has to go back to his cabin, because he's been staying with them for quite a while.
Yeah, they
So,
gave him his own place.
he goes back to his cabin, and of course he's been living with the Native Americans for so long. He shows up looking like one of them, the same outfit, riding his horse, and the guys.
By that point, they had sent another detachment of soldiers to the fort. So they're in the fort, and it's deserted when
Looks
they
like
get there.
here comes
an Indian.
That's
and
it. So they start shooting.
They kill his horse. They killed Cisco. That was horrible.
This was a hard point. This was the turning point in the movie. They kill quite a few things that we are attached to. It does kind of have a bittersweet ending to it. He does end up getting swept away back into the system.
They're going to hang him.
There's no record that he was sent out there on a mission. They think he's just an abandoned...
a deserter.
That's it, a deserter that went and joined the American Indians, and he deserves to hang for deserting. So
you don't desert the army. Yeah.
It was quite hard watching him go through that, especially after you see how peaceful everything had been in his life previously, the life that he could have lived. So I think that's kind of what he decides.
Oh, it makes you hate the white man.
The movie definitely is very well written to show
beautifully done
that time period for what I believe it really was.
Yes.
And I do think that the happy ending we're looking for is he goes back and decides it's best, because they won't stop hunting him. The army will never let him go. They're going to follow him wherever he goes. It makes it obvious. So he goes and tells the village leaves for the winter, right?
Right. They go to their winter camp.
And instead of going with them, he says, no, they'll follow me. So he's fallen in love with Stands with a Fist.
Yes.
And they kind of go off into the wilderness on their own to start what I would assume their own family and live, as close to nature as they had previously in the village. So it has a happy ending, but it is sad because he does have to leave behind the things that he's come to love and learn that's what he loves about life.
But the relationships and the friendships and the respect and
wonderful.
The admiration and just, it was a feel-good. It left you feeling sad, but also good, too.
Yep, so my hat off to Kevin Costner for this.
Indeed.
And
go ahead.
For Kevin Costner writing himself in that butt shot.
Oh, yes, we get it, ladies. We get a butt shot.
We do get a Kevin Costner butt shot in this movie.
It was very well. I like that.
I was going to say, I was like, so Kevin Costner wrote himself into this? He was probably like, my butt's looking good. I think we're going to do this shot today. So I definitely, and sorry, guys. There's no girl butt.
I'll have to get over it,
There's plenty of other movies.
Women have to deal with that all the time. TNA.
That you can go to watch for girl butt, but we get a guy butt shot.
Yeah.
So that's my happy ending.
Yes.
We're going to have some interesting comments, I think, on this happy ending.
Oh, well.
I loved the movie. Definitely, when we grade our movies, when we say top 10 or top 20, she pointed it out perfectly when if you were going to be stuck on a desert island and you only were allowed to take 10 or 20 films, movies, pictures with you, things that you'd want to watch over and over again, things that you loved and that you catch new things every time you watch it, or things that anyways, everybody's got their own
feel good soul. Good for your soul.
So that's what we mean when we say our top 20, and this one definitely is, I think, on both of ours. I know it's yours.
Very much so.
That was one of the first ones you mentioned you wanted to review, so we appreciate your time as always.
Thank you.
Let us know what you think about this movie, and hopefully we'll have some good constructive comments coming back towards our way.
Hope so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Anyways, we look forward to seeing you next time, and we really appreciate it.